Spotlight.
This is Akashvani. In the program Spotlight, now we bring a discussion on statistics of economic growth. The participants are Shishir Sinha, economic analyst, and Gaura Dhawanlal, anchor.
Hello and welcome to our program. According to recently released data, the Indian GDP expanded 7.4% from the previous year in the March quarter of 2025, accelerating from the upwardly revised 6.4% growth in the earlier period and sharply above market expectations of a 6.7% rise, marking the sharpest growth rate of the fiscal year. Well, to decode the figures and the data which has been released by the NSO, we are delighted to have in the studio with us well-known economist Shishir Sinha. Shishir, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Actually, lots of figures and lots of number crunching going on. But for our listeners, first of all, help us understand. So the real GDP Q4, 7.4% growth is the figure. And the nominal GDP was up by 9.8%. So just give us the difference between the two.
First of all, when we talk about the 7.4% number, which is saying real GDP, and when you say 9.8%, which is the nominal GDP, what is the difference between nominal and the real? The difference is the inflation. So if the rate of inflation is say 3%, 3.5%, so you just deduct the number, that particular headline number or the print number from the nominal GDP, and then you arrive at the real GDP number. So whenever we talk about the economic growth, we always take the real GDP. And whenever we talk about the size of the economy or any ratio like fiscal deficit or debt to GDP ratio, there we take the nominal GDP. So these are the differences between nominal GDP and the real GDP. Now coming to the number 7.4% in Q4. There are two key factors we have to keep in mind. One is the growth of construction sector and the second one is the growth of the manufacturing sector. Construction sector is very important. Why? Construction sector is important because if there is a boom in construction, that means almost 400 types of activities directly or indirectly will get benefited by the construction activity. When we say growth in the manufacturing sector, that means you are going to have a job multiplier, because suppose that there is a factory being set up. That means you are not just providing the goods for as an input for the final output to be manufactured, but you are also providing a truck service to take that raw material from the origin place to the factory, and then you are taking the final product from the factory to the market. So any kind of growth in the manufacturing means also increase in the services related activity.
Right.
So that is why these two are critical, construction as well as the manufacturing. So when we say 7.4%, we have to keep in mind that these two, construction and manufacturing, have contributed in this particular growth number. And at the same time, the agriculture growth, which was slightly on a lower side, now it has picked up. And that's a very good sign, especially keeping in mind the food inflation. So these are the three factors which have contributed in achieving 7.4%. And please mind it that this is the fastest growth rate among all the emerging economy, even if you compare with China, where the growth rate was 5.4%. So we are in a much better position in terms of the growth rate.
I think that's a very valid point, Shishir, because all of us keep looking at third largest, fourth largest, fifth largest. But I think in real terms, for a country, it's the rate of growth which is very important. That's what actually shows progress. That shows how many people are actually getting more money into their hands. And that is what is going to show sustainability. So I think it's very valid.
Yeah. And also we need to remember that when we talk about our economy, services has a maximum share over 54%, while the industry has 27 or 28%, and agriculture has 17-18%.
Right.
But more and more people are depending upon agriculture and the industry.
Right. So 50% of our employment is with agriculture, though the contribution of agriculture is, as you said, around 16%. Do you think this is healthy for sustainability?
Yes, considering this year, when we talk about the monsoon, and we have whatsoever IMD has said that the monsoon will be above normal, which is a very good sign for the rural economy. And even if it has just a contribution of 17 to 18% in overall economy, but that monsoon is very, very critical factor, not just for the rural economy, but also for the urban economy, because that leads to what we call as the virtuous cycle. Because when the rural demand is picking up, the factories which are located in, say, semi-urban area or in urban area, they are going to produce more and more, and that means they are going to provide employment in the urban area or the semi-urban area. So consumer may be in the rural area, but the supplier and the producers are in the semi-urban or the urban area. So any good monsoon is going to have a kind of positive impact on overall economy.
You speaking of positivity, in fact, Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman has spoken about these figures. She's also optimistic, and I think she's also, said that not very many people thought that India would be able to sustain these figures for the past 4 years. So let's just listen to her.
India's industry, the manufacturing activity, have all been so good during quarter 4, and quarter 4's growth alone was 7.4%, and the data's come out today. And as a result, for the entire financial year of 24-25, March 31st, 25, the GDP numbers are 6.5. India is sustaining this growth as the fastest growing economy now for the 4th year continuously without a break.
So Shishir, I think this applauding of the manufacturing sector, but wanting to understand from you that overall across the world, they say that 20 to 25 is a good figure for GDP percentage come from manufacturing because that shows long-term sustainability in times of crisis. We are producing most of what we want within. And I know this whole focus across the world has been for a global economy, that countries specialize in different areas. But now we are seeing when the semiconductor thing happened, that every country is now wanting to get more and more independent and bring manufacturing in. So it won't be a complete trend reversal, but definitely focus on manufacturing. Do you think that we are really, and these figures that are coming, are they indicative of an increase and a definite focus on saying, yes, we need to bring more and more advanced manufacturing in the country?
Certainly, and if you take various schemes by the government, whether we talk about the PLI scheme, whether we talk about the startup scheme, whether we talk about the Stand Up India, whether we talk about the Make in India or Made for the World scheme, all those schemes have contributed. Of course, if you see as a percentage of overall GVA, gross value added, there the manufacturing has a share of 18-19%, where we need at least 22 to 25%.
Right.
Of course, the target is there, but still we have not been able to achieve that. There could be a number of reasons for that, but I'm not going into that region. The important thing is that it is expanding. It may not be expanding at the rate which we were expecting, but because of the PLI, you must have noticed that we have become one of the largest exporter of mobile handset. We have become the pharmaceutical hub for the world. We have become the pharmaceutical capital for the world. And there are a number of areas where we are becoming more and more progressive in the capacity as well as the capacity utilization. So I'm sure that after say 2 or 3 years, we will see more and more manufacturing activities. We will see the share of manufacturing in gross value added crossing 20% or 21% or say 22% by 2030. Because please remember, we have a target of achieving $5 trillion by 27-28. Then we have the target of $10 trillion by 2033. And then we have to achieve Viksit Bharat by 2047. And if we have to achieve these targets, we need more and more focus on the manufacturing. Of course, agriculture is there, but please remember that in agriculture, 85% farmers are small and marginal farmers. And that is why their contribution in the GVA is slightly on the lower side. Of course, the overall agriculture is doing very well, but you also have to consider the micro contribution from the agriculture in overall productivity. And that is why we need more and more manufacturing activities to be taking India to a developed nation status.
So just a little decoding of these figures from you, when we say 5 trillion and 7 trillion. So these are figures, but for them to actually have meaning for the last mile, for the small and marginal farmer, for the labor force, for the worker in the manufacturing, and I'm talking about the minimum wage workers, and for the unorganized sector, what are some things that we need to keep in mind that growth and development have to happen together? They're normally not always the same.
I would use the word inclusive growth.
Okay.
So that is the real sense behind the impact of development, impact of growth, or the benefit of growth should reach to the last mile. That should be the aim. You must have noticed that only last week, government announced hiking the MSP, minimum support price, for the Kharif crops. Why they have done it? Because so that farmers are getting the lucrative price for their produce. If 68% of our population are living in rural area, a large number of people, or you mentioned about that the 50% labor force is in the farm sector, there we need to provide more and more money. And that money can be possible only through these kind of mechanism. At the same time, we are also working on, say, minimum wages for the factories also. And in fact, government is also encouraging many of the factories. In fact, post-COVID, there was a scheme to set up your plant, and for first few years, we will give you the statutory dues to be provided by the government. So all those things are intended to provide better wage to the worker. And if we talk about the government servant, we have, say, pay commission, which is going to give its recommendation. If we talk about the private sector, they are also increasing their wages and their salary. So there are increase. There may be some people who may be saying that the increase is not what we were expecting, but that is not something which is to be debated. The issue is that whether we are providing or not. And if we are providing for the agriculture sector, if we are providing to the services sector, if we are providing something in the manufacturing sector, these things we will have to keep in mind. And of course, the per capita income, if you see the GDP number, per capita income has also gone up. Of course, the per capita income is the average. It is not something that every individual is getting that money. So per capita income is the average, but still it has gone up. So these things we have to keep in mind. MSP, then the per capita income, and also we have to see minimum wage level in various factories and various MSME units, or what are the minimum wages standard set up by the government.
Do you think our rate of consumption is going up, or is inflation actually really dampening things?
The good thing is that inflation is down. I mean, if we take the current number, which is around 3.16%, 3.2%, which is
down from the previous year.
Down from the previous month. And if we take the median rate of 4%, which is according to the inflation targeting, that is below that. That's a good level. What is the area of concern at this moment is that the rural consumption is picking up, but urban consumption is not picking up in that proportion. Even the government figure itself says that the rural consumption has picked up. Urban consumption is picking up, but it is at a slower pace. When we are talking about pickup in the overall consumption number, we also have to keep in mind how the urban consumption is picking up. This year, this budget has provided an income tax rate reduction, and this has kicked in from April 1, 2025. So we are expecting that during this quarter and as well as the next quarter, we will see more money in the hands of the people, especially in the urban area, and they are going to consume more. This is one thing. At the same time, when the inflation is low, there is a possibility of cutting down the policy interest rate, what we call as a repo rate. So since we have seen 2 cuts already, and we are also expecting 2 more cuts, say one in the June, which is the next month, and of course in the month of August. So if the rate of interest is lower, that means people will be encouraged to go for buying more and more goods. If they are going to buying more and more goods, that means the manufacturing activities will pick up. Manufacturing activities will further pick up. That means more and more employment opportunities will be created. More and more employment opportunities will be created. That means more and more money will be in that. And that is the virtuous cycle which you just mentioned. So this kind of virtuous cycle will be possible if rural demand as well as the urban demand are picking up at a good pace. Rural demand is picking up at a good pace. Urban demand is slightly slower, but we are expecting that this particular quarter and the next quarter it will pick up. And one clear indication is that e-way bill generation. You know, e-way bill is basically under GST mechanism. When you are transporting goods, if the value is more than rupees 50,000, you have to produce e-way bill. E-way bill generation has reached a very good number in the month of April, and that is an indication that there is a demand which is going to take place in the urban area also. So that is why we are expecting that the urban consumption will further pick up. The rate is slightly slow at this moment, but it will pick up in the coming months, and that is going to help the overall consumption cycle to grow further.
On this optimistic note, Shishir Sinha, thank you so much. You have explained, and I think everybody says economics and numbers, complex term, but lucidly and in simple terms for all of us. Thank you so much for coming onto our program.
Thank you very much.
You were listening to a discussion of statistics of economic growth. The participants were Shishir Sinha, economic analyst, and Gaura Dhamanlal, anchor. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may share your feedback about this program through email at airnsdtalks@gmail.com or WhatsApp on 9289094044.
Spotlight.